Greetings and welcome, Excellencies, distinguished guests and friends. I'm glad to welcome warmly all of you to this conclave on India-Central Europe Partnership organized by Tillotoma Foundation. I'm Soham Das, Director, Tillotoma Foundation. Tillotoma Foundation is a global organization working in the areas of international relations, financial, environmental, scientific, strategic, and defense policy. We are privileged to have amongst us as today's distinguished speakers His Excellency Mr. Adam Brakowski, Ambassador of Poland to India, His Excellency Mr. Milan Hovorka, Ambassador of Czech Republic to India, His Excellency Mr. Ivan Lankarik, Ambassador of Slovak Republic to India, His Excellency Mr. Andras Laszlo Kirali, Ambassador of Hungary to India, Dr. Irina Ionela Pop, CGSRS London Researcher and Public Administration Officer, Romania, Dr. Gauri Shankar Gupta, former Indian Ambassador to Hungary and Distinguished Advisor, Tillotoma Foundation, Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, former Indian Ambassador to Sweden and Distinguished Fellow, International Trade and Diplomacy, Tillotoma Foundation, and Dr. Namrata Kothari, Assistant Professor under the University of Calcutta. Unfortunately, Dr. Pop couldn't join us here, but sends her regards and her official statement. I must sincerely thank all the distinguished speakers for their participation. We hope to gain a lot of insights about the strong and multi-sectoral partnership between India and Central Europe. Let me also specially thank the embassies of Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Slovak Republic for their cooperation. I think there is a massive scope for collaboration between India and the Central European states. There are a number of common links. So we are discussing a very important partnership at this conclave. I think everyone now understands the massive potential in this partnership. In fact, we are very lucky to have all the four V4 or Visegrád Group countries here. India has strengthened its partnership with the four countries in a major way in the last few years. Honorable Minister of External Affairs of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, visited the region in an important official visit in August 2019, where he categorically stressed the importance of the Visegrád Group to India. There is a renewed focus from the Indian side on Central Europe. There exists a strong partnership between the two sides in the area of trade and commerce. A few years ago, the Confederation of Indian Industries formed the CII Regional Committee on Central Europe with the objective of strengthening the economic ties between India and Central Europe. A report entitled Trade and Investment Relations between India and Central Europe, a study of opportunities, was also released. The fifth edition of the India-Europe 29 Business Forum, which was organized in New Delhi in November 2019, saw high-level participation from several Central European countries, including all the V4 countries and Romania. The government of India underlined their priority for Central Europe and highlighted that India provides a huge opportunity for partnership and investment in this particular forum. V4 countries have also strongly supported India in different multilateral forums. The shared commitment to international peace and security has been an important contributing factor towards this. Central Europe has supported India in its fight against terrorism. There is, as we know, a UN Security Council non-permanent seat from East Europe. All the V4 countries and also Romania has had at least one term as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. India has always found support from them on the floor of the UN. I think this crucial partnership will grow immensely in the near future, bringing in mutual benefits, shared prosperity, and will hold the values of peace, development, and stability in the world. I thank all of you once again. Let me now invite His Excellency Mr. Adam Brakowski, Ambassador of Poland to India, to make his statement.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
So, Thank you very much for the Tillotoma Foundation, and then thank you, Mr. Director Soham Das, but also a big thanks to our friend Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, also a friend, a very good friend of the former EU ambassador to India, Mr. Tomasz Kozłowski, who is from Poland, and also thank you, Ambassador Gauri Shankar Gupta, for organizing all this fantastic event, and thank you, my colleagues Milan, Ondras, and Ivan for participating here. This is a very great opportunity, and also a clear sign that the perception, Indian perception of Central Eastern Europe is growing. I mean, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, before Visegrád Group and Central Europe was not a topic, not a very important topic for Indian foreign policy. Even as I started my career here, like 3 years ago as ambassador, I received many questions. What is before? What is Visegrád Group? What is Central Europe? Now I'm not receiving these questions, and now everybody now knows what is Visegrád Group, and how we should deal with the Visegrád Group. And they also, as far as I understand, Indian side wants to know more about our region. Also, I can stress here the importance of the current foreign minister, Mr. Jaishankar, who was posted to Central European countries, to Prague, and he really knows the region, and he puts importance to our region. He understands the mentality of us, of our people, and he, as far as I know, he sees a future in this relation. So in Central Europe, we have the Visegrád Group, which was originated in February, 15th of February 1991. So we'll be having a 30th anniversary in a few months, which we'll celebrate. And the first scope of creating the Visegrád Group was to join efforts to integrate our countries to Western structures, NATO and the European Union. Then our countries joined the European Union. This is still a format that we use mainly in Europe, but as the time progresses, we are more and more open to other countries, other continents. I can name here in Asia South Korea and Japan. With both these countries, we had meetings with V4 plus format, V4 plus Japan, V4 plus South Korea, at the level of Prime Minister, and it gives it shows the importance of this format. Also, there is another format in Central Europe, the 3Cs initiative, that is broader than the Visegrád Group. It also contains the Baltic states, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, Romania, and Bulgaria. This is the format of countries which are in the European Union, and they want to show their position and to cooperate with other partners in Europe and outside Europe. But of course, the Visegrád Group is more coherent and more important I see in the relations with India. What we observe now, unfortunately, is the COVID situation. I can speak a little bit about Poland, my country, how the COVID affected the relations with India. So the trade turnover between Poland and India went down in 2019 by 13%, only because of COVID, of this loss of communication. Next thing, but also very harmful for our relation, is the cancellation of international flights, and especially of the direct flight between Warsaw and New Delhi, which we opened with great expectations September last year, but just after half a year we had to cancel it because of the COVID risk. And now we are trying to have the air bubble with India and to revive this very important connections. Also, this trade, it is not only, of course, by airlines, but other trade, as I said, also suffered from this COVID. But nevertheless, we hope that the COVID will be overcome soon. Maybe the vaccine would appear in the first quarter of next year, and then we should really work hard on revival of all of this that we had. So what we had and what we are having now is that India is the primary destination of Polish foreign investment in Asia. In whole Asia, India is #1 for Polish investors. There are around 40 companies from Poland in India, and they are based mainly in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. Recently, we opened the honorary consulate in Bengaluru, and we are hoping for it to give it a new boost for the mutual relations. Especially in the IT sector. In Bengaluru, as you know, there is a headquarters of Infosys, and Infosys, its largest branch in Europe is in Poland, in Łódź, but also in other cities they are expanding. We are trying to work with Infosys to make it even more investment in Poland. Also, other IT companies, Indian IT companies, are investing in Poland. Also, these human people-to-people relations, they are progressing or even booming. Just before COVID, the last data that we had from December 2019, there were around 40,000 Indians permanently living in Poland, or permanently or for a longer period than just a tourist visit. Among them, there were 4,000 students, and we are really working hard on making the student exchange and the academic cooperation more vital, more important. And also, the Polish National Agency for Academic Exchange is trying to reach to Indian students with offering some scholarships for them and possibilities of studying in Poland. And last but not least, what we really share with India is the values. I mean, in Central Europe, we understand the importance of democracy, of peace and stability. Our region suffered the many wars that devastated the whole countries, and we want to prevent the wars. We would like to live in peace, and India is a fantastic partner in this context, which was shown also, as you mentioned, with our cooperation in the UN Security Council. Actually, the Indian representative, Ambassador Tillotoma, is a good friend of ours. He has visited Poland a few times, and he really knows what is the Central Europe and how to deal with it. So we are expecting progress in these relations, and we are perfectly aware that we, the Central Europeans, and Indians are very good partners based on same values and good economic cooperations and friendly people-to-people contact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Adam Barakowski, Ambassador of Poland to India, for your statement. I now invite His Excellency, Mr. Milan Hovorka, Ambassador of Czech Republic to India, to kindly make his statement.
Thank you so much, and once again, great to see known faces, and I too would like to join Adam in expressing my gratitude to Tillotoma Foundation for organizing today's conclave on India Central Europe relations and bringing us together. And as Adam rightly spoke about pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, which no doubt is one of the most unprecedented challenges we have faced. I want to start by expressing my firm belief that all participants are doing well, and I would like to send greetings to everyone. Well, as I understand the purpose of today's event, it is primarily about synergies and complementarities between and among Central European countries, Visegrád, definitely, the 4 countries on the one hand, and long-lasting bonds of friendships. These countries always had with India on the other hand. And the key question, as I see it, to be addressed here, is what more we could and should do to engage all positive developments, mutual sympathies, complementarities, with a clear objective of strengthening political, strategic, economic, and again, absolutely, Adam is absolutely right to say that we also have to add people-to-people dimension, which is very important. And clearly, the purpose is to take our mutual relations to the next stage, whether it's a bilateral, regional, or multilateral level. And I will try to address some of those headlines I mentioned in my introductory remarks. And I will start with closeness and friendliness between the four countries and India. And I have to say that it dates back decades and decades before establishment of formal diplomatic relations. Just to give you one example, we started thinking with colleagues of mine here at the embassy what we can eventually do to mark the centenary of one of the first Czechoslovak consulates we established in Mumbai in 1921. And unfortunately, I don't have, or maybe fortunately, I don't have enough time to highlight at least some of what we have enjoyed. And I also have to add, because it is important, of what we have learned together. But I don't have enough time, and I will only mention a decades-long tradition of cooperation in Indian industrialization. And I tell you, even today, when I have opportunity to talk to people, many of them, they tend to say that it was a great relationship forging and trust building process. Now turning to some of those synergies and complementarities that make the four countries and the entire Central European region an increasingly promising partner. And I promise I will not necessarily be talking about geographical proximity. Instead, I would rather allude to the unique historical experience that we have gone through, and thanks to which we can now perfectly understand the values of freedom, democracy, sovereignty, territorial integrity, rule of law, and respect for human rights. And these are all values that have very strong resonance here in India. It is important to remind them, even at this point in time. And I will not bother you about the complexity of the transformation process. Imagine that we had to change completely the entire political setting to transform our respective countries from what used to be a one-party system to a pluralistic democracy, from a centrally planned economy to a fully fledged market economies. And definitely, we also had to reorient our foreign affairs priorities. And look now, 30, more than 30 years since those famous revolutions took place in our respective countries. Look where we stand today. We are all members of the European Union and NATO. And I believe that I should add, and I believe that colleagues would agree, proud members of this, for us, important institution. I believe that even our colleagues and friends here in India would agree if I say that the region has become one of the most vibrant parts of Europe. And definitely one of the most attractive trade and investment ports. And this is also what this conclave is about. It is important to recall, and it's obvious, that we have been equally successful in reinvigorating mutual trade and economic relations. And I believe that for all of us, regional cooperation, E4 cooperation, is one of key building blocks on our path towards robust and sustainable growth. And again, I believe that those elements are mentioned are extremely relevant throughout today's discussion. And I believe that they have to be taken into account when we talk about the ways and means to strengthen and deepen mutual cooperation. And I believe that it has become crystal clear that we are serious about our intentions. We want to take the old friendly ties to the next level. And we stand ready to unleash what you, Mr. Director, described as massive potential. And I fully agree with you. So then the question is, what to do in order to crown our joint effort, because I believe this is a jointly shared objective, to crown our efforts by success. The first point I would like to mention here that we have to take a more political approach and to reassure each other that we do not consider each other just as an economic partner, but also important political partner. And in fact, this is what is happening at the European Union India level. Suffice to mention EU strategy on India adopted in 2018, or the summit, EU-India summit, which took place only recently. And we talk about trusted partners willing to work on a number of issues of different nature. But at the same time, I believe that this is also what is happening at the bilateral level. And I can mention a number of high-level visits we organized over the last 3 years. Definitely state visit of the President of India, Honorable Ramnath Kovind, to the Czech Republic. I can mention my Prime Minister's visit to India in January 2019. But also earlier this year's visit of my boss, Foreign Affairs Minister of the Czech Republic, Tomáš Petříček, to India. And well, I believe that it's only logic. Then in this scenario, and considering also broader geopolitical aspects, we started talking about the objective of elevating our bilateral partnership to the strategic level. And definitely, we are like-minded countries on a number of international issues. We have been supportive of India in its fight against terrorism, including definitely cross-border terrorism. Well, talking about the Czech Republic, but I believe that colleagues could share the same. We have been quite vocal about our support to Indian cause to become a full-fledged member of the Security Council of the United Nations. We have been also quite vocal about India's interest in becoming a full-fledged member of the Nuclear Supply Group. And definitely, we work together also in some other control regimes. I will not list them. We all know what export control regimes I talk about, and mention that we have been also frontrunners when it comes to global non-proliferation. And I believe that we are ideally positioned also to find a common ground with India on a number of other international challenges, be it climate change, green recovery, energy transition, peaceful use of nuclear energy, yet another important asset as we are united in our belief that this kind of energy has its potential and that its potential has to be used while definitely preserving all necessary, or not preserving, putting very high all necessary security standards. Adam talked about economic cooperation, and definitely here I see practically unlimited, I don't see any boundaries. And I believe that in a number of areas it could be a win-win situation if we join efforts and are more effective in bringing two parameters as I see them. Technologies on one side, and we do have companies which distinguish for leading edge technologies on the one hand, and huge market and ambition of India to go green. And again, talking about the green economy, I believe that again, we four countries could serve as an example of what we have done over the last 30 years. And I believe that we have proved that still, on the one hand, you can go green, but at the same time have robust economic growth. Adam talked about trade. And I believe that this is an area in which probably we have not yet been successful in explaining to our Indian friends that in fact we are much more important trading partners for India than it could eventually be seen if you look at the Indian statistics. And I will not bother you about figures. I will only tell you that last year our bilateral trade was worth of $1.6 billion, of which imports from India, I should rather say, were to the tune of $990 19 million US dollars. We do have data for the first 9 months of this year. I tell you honestly, and that's the reality, we have to face it. We have lost almost 28% of our exports to India. But on the contrary, imports from India declined by a mere 1.1%. The point I am not making is that we are not happy with the fact that we run a huge trade deficit. The point I am making is that we remain a very good, transparent, reliable partner for India, even in this trying coronavirus times. And the final comment, and you know it, that is one of my highest priorities, people-to-people contact. And we have been taking tremendous effort to promote them through culture, education, student exchanges, tourism, not to forget definitely Ayurveda, Indian yoga, both very popular in our part of Europe these days. And I tell you, I am at the same time proud of the intensity and quality of our bilateral people-to-people contacts. And I will also mention it here that we have been also mindful of our greatest souls to mark the 150th anniversary of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. We have been organizing a number of events, I believe not only in the Czech Republic, but in our other V4 countries. But also I have to mention Václav Havel and the Velvet Revolution we celebrated with our Indian friends last November. And we organized a beautiful event with Ivan to mark this important milestone in our modern history. So friends, I will bring my intervention to an end, and before concluding, once again, thank you very much for this opportunity, and definitely I remain committed and look forward for eventual QR period. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Milan Hovorka, Ambassador of Czech Republic to India, for your statement. I now invite His Excellency, Mr. Andras Laszlo Kirli, Ambassador of Hungary to India, to kindly make his statement.
Thank you, Director. It's a real pleasure to join you. I'm a newcomer to India. I just got here less than 2 months ago. I just presented my credentials to His Excellency, the Indian President, last Friday. So I'm really happy to speak among friends with my colleagues from the V4 group, Central European countries. And I'm really happy to be a part of a discussion where I can meet with His Excellency Ambassador Gupta, who is a very highly regarded former Indian ambassador to Hungary. I'm in a very uncomfortable situation because Ambassador Gupta already did everything in our relationship that an ambassador can do. For example, he facilitated the signing of one of our most important educational agreements, the Stipendium Hungarikum scholarship, or during his tenure, Apollo Tires became the most important greenfield investor in Hungary. So thank you, Ambassador Gupta. When talking about Central Europe, when talking about the Visegrád 4 countries, it's always a rewarding thing to do because we have a long history of cooperation. And this cooperation was not always simple because, as my colleagues told you previously, all of our countries had very difficult agendas to pursue in the beginning of the 90s. It was transition to democracy. It was starting a very difficult, and we don't talk so much about it nowadays, but it was a very difficult accession period to the European Union. It wasn't easy. We had high numbers of unemployment. Our economy was changing, was in a very difficult situation. Our security structure was changing. We made huge efforts to join NATO. And still we managed to cooperate on a regional level. And the big takeaway, the big historical lesson out of our example is that there is no optimal time for regional cooperation. But there is always an opportunity to cooperate with your neighbor, with your friends, with your like-minded countries. And always remember to keep on the top of the agenda the regional cooperation as well, even if there are other stringent topics on your agenda. It's very rewarding, as it was shown in the previous contribution. Nowadays, Central Europe, the Central European countries, and the cluster of countries that we see in between the Baltic, the Black, and the Adriatic Sea are really the engines of the European Union. So that was a huge transformation that we did in very short period of time. So our average contribution to the GDP of Europe is that of a double than the GDP growth of the old European countries. We contribute a lot to trade with investment and obviously with human resources as well. Our citizens are contributing a lot to the development of Europe all over the continent. So really, Central Europe is a successful story. It's really something that you can look at as an example in regional cooperation, in economic cooperation, in trade, in infrastructure development, which is a very important agenda as well. And another lesson for India probably is that beside the economical and trade aspect of Central Europe, that there is a strategic aspect as well. We strongly believe, at least in Hungary, that you cannot really deepen your relationship with Europe only through one center, like Brussels, or before Brexit, through London, for example. But Europe is changing. Europe is changing a lot. And Central Europe has a group of that can contribute to this strategic or political aspect to the code. Speaking about security, today is a sad day because we are also remembering the terror attack in Mumbai in 2008. And with our colleagues, we just remember that in our morning session today. And it reminds us that security, working on security aspects in our cooperation is something to forget. I was accredited to Hungary. I tried to understand our relationship between Hungary and India. And the response was always that we don't have any problems, that our relationship is unproblematic, is developing nicely, and which is a very good thing because we have a long history of relationship. We have a long history of friendship, of institutional relationship, a long history of cultural relationship, of political relationship, so on. But we really need to focus on the future, and the COVID pandemic. It's really a very strong message also in this respect. And according to my understanding, India is becoming a global player on the global arena. It's becoming a country that you cannot avoid to engage with. You cannot avoid to consider it as an important partner. And our duty here as ambassadors is to make our politicians back at home and our citizens back home to understand the importance of what India is becoming in the very new future. This conversation that you have organized, Director, and thank you very much for it, it's something that really points the attention to the importance, strategic importance of India that we need to work with. With this, I really thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to be here together with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Andras Laszlo Kirali, Ambassador of Hungary to India, for your statement. I now invite His Excellency, Mr. Ivan Lancerik, Ambassador of Slovak Republic to India, to kindly make his statement.
Good afternoon, namaste, greetings to Kolkata. I hope that you have a nice weather like we have today in Delhi. Finally, after a long time, it's sunshine without pollution. So I very much hope that you have also good weather in Kolkata. I had the privilege to visit your city a year ago. I was invited to the Kolkata International Film Festival, and I have to tell you that I enjoyed very much. Okay, so first of all, let me express my gratitude to the organizers, to the Tillotoma, to Mr. Director, to both ambassadors, Ambassador Sajanhar, Ambassador Gupta. We did not have opportunity to meet before, gentlemen, but once you will have the opportunity to travel to Delhi, you are mostly welcome to visit me at the embassy, which is probably the biggest Slovak embassy outside of, generally, yeah, not outside, the biggest Slovak embassy in the world. You know, we are together with Milan in one compound. He's from my place now, maybe some 50 meters, I am sitting in the office of the former Czechoslovak ambassador, and this building, this huge building, with the huge residence, which I am currently occupying, with the cinema, with the big representation hall for several hundred people. We have 36 flats. We have a swimming pool here. So this building is a symbol of the level of the Czechoslovak-Indian relationship, which we have started building after the Second World War, and the symbol of expectations. Because we have, I mean, the former Czechoslovakia invested a really huge amount of energy and money to build this compound. And in the former times, we had here, you know, I'm just judging, look, 36 flats. So at least 36 people from Czechoslovakia, diplomats, plus hundreds of engineers working in India. I can just tell you, you know, that I have read during my preparations for this post that former Czechoslovakia has built over 60 investment projects in India. Can you imagine? 60 investment projects during those, let's say, 40 years, because we have started with building this embassy in 1962 and we finished in 1972. And then came the year 1989, a lot of changes in Central Europe and generally in the world. We peacefully divided our country. We peacefully divided the embassy. There is no fence between us. We are still living here like one big family. And across the street, now where I am now sitting, you know, is the Polish ambassador. So Adam is some 50 meters from me. And then is Andras, who is maybe 100 meters from me. So all of us, we are living here in one small space in big India. So it demonstrates that even in the past, you considered former Czechoslovakia, Poland, Hungary as one group of countries. It's not a coincidence that we are so close to each other. So after the division of the country, I mean, I'm not going to repeat what has been said by the current V4 presidency, by Adam. I'm not going to repeat what Milan has said or Andras. I just want to say that from the Slovak perspective, you know, after the breakup of the Czechoslovakia, from the archives, I can see we put a lot of efforts to keep the bilateral relations alive. We have a lot of visits from Slovakia to India, a lot of visits from India to Slovakia. However, I have to admit that unfortunately the trade between our two countries was slowly falling down. That's the reality. You discovered the West. We became the members of the European Union. But nevertheless, there is a huge potential. There is a huge potential of cooperation between our countries and India. You know, we Slovaks, I mean the Slovakia, we are the smallest among the V4 countries. Our population is just 5.5 million inhabitants. But because of the industrial history of the country, we can still offer a lot to India. And can you imagine that Slovakia is the biggest car producer in the world per capita? You in India, with your population, 1.3 billion, you produce 4 million vehicles per year. We in Slovakia, with the population of 1/4 of Delhi, we produced last year 1.1 million vehicles. And with the new investment of Volkswagen, which we expect in 2 years' time, we will produce 1.3 up to 1.4 million vehicles per year. Speaking about the automotive industry, I have to say that we were very successful in attracting Indian investments to Slovakia, to Central Europe. The largest de facto Indian investment is the Jaguar Land Rover plant, which was opened in November 2018. It's a de facto Indian investment worth 1.5 billion euro. And only, of course, the brand is JLR because the Tata is the full owner of JLR UK. But we very much appreciate, and we know that the decision was taken in Mumbai, not in London, in Mumbai. So we are very grateful for this decision. And I have to say that we are very happy that we have also the huge investment of the biggest Indian producer of the automotive parts, which is the Motherson company. Again, this is de facto a Dutch investment because it came through the Dutch offshore company, but de facto it's an Indian investment, and they have 3 plants in Slovakia. So you can see that the flagships of your automotive industry are in Slovakia. And this fact is very important because we can build upon this. Last year, Tata Consultancy Services opened the office in Bratislava. And we are, even during this pandemic year, working on the new investments from India. Because your companies are aware of this fact and they want to follow the Tatas or Motherson Group. Speaking about the relationship between the Central Europe, Visegrád Group, and India, of course, I have to speak about the people-to-people connections. In this regard, my friend Milan, did a great job. He is here for 6 years. I am just here for more than 2 years. But we are also trying to attract more and more Indian tourists to visit Slovakia. Like our Polish friends, like Hungarians, we want to open Slovakia to the tourists from India. They should discover Slovakia, which is in the middle of Central Europe. And therefore, we signed the agreement with the VFS, and we opened the Slovak representations in Delhi, in Mumbai, and in Bangalore. I personally opened these offices in 2019. As a matter of fact, of course, because of the pandemic, the flow of tourism has been stopped. But we very much believe that with the next season, we will be able to restart these activities. I have prepared a presentation on 15 minutes about the relationship between Slovakia and India. But I know that we are short on time, and I don't want to speak about all the details. But I have to mention also the cooperation in defense industry, which is very traditional sphere of cooperation between our countries. Don't forget that Slovakia used to be the biggest or one of the biggest suppliers of the Soviet Union of the arms and defense procurement to India. And the majority of this, production facilities were based in Slovakia, in my country. So we are also very active in this respect. We are encouraging the Slovak companies to take part in the tenders of the Ministry of Defense. However, I have to say that the bureaucratic procedures are too long on the Indian side. And we spent a lot of, let's put it this way, lot of energy. I'm not going to speak about money, but a lot of energy on resuming these activities. Concerning our bilateral trade, as I have mentioned, we are the smallest country, so our trade, bilateral trade, is the smallest one in comparison with the other V4 countries. However, I'm very happy that during the last 2 years, our export has doubled to India, but it's still very small. And you know, I'm the former Director General of the Foreign Trade Policy at the Ministry of Economy of the Slovak Republic. So I always present a very realistic view on the foreign trade issues. You know, this is about statistics. So the trade is generally, I mean, the turnover is still very small one, and it's very much behind the potential of two countries. But I have to say that I don't see any boundaries between us. I agree with Ambassador Hovorka, my friend, but there is one boundary. It's an absence of the free trade agreement between the European Union and us. I mean, not only Slovakia, but generally speaking, V4 countries and European Union. Our main export commodity are automotives, but the luxury and very high quality vehicles from Slovakia are extremely expensive in India. If you want to buy a car like, you know, Volkswagen, Audi, I mean, the luxury cars here, you have to pay more than 100% duties. So we very much support the idea of having the free trade agreement, but it must be ambitious, comprehensive, and mutually convenient free trade agreement. So in this respect, we support very much our leaders, and we very much expect that the both sides will move forward with the talks on a free trade agreement. But as I said, it must be mutually convenient. It cannot be a selected only, you know. Okay. What should I mention? Maybe, well, I don't want to speak too much about COVID because the situation in Slovakia is very similar to the other European countries. We are fighting with COVID. During the last season, during the first wave, we were one among the most successful countries. Now we have a different situation. We are fighting, and the unique, the Slovakia is a unique country in this respect that we had a general testing of the whole population during the last months. It was not compulsory, but basically, you know, the 2/3 or even more the population were tested in 2 weeks' time. And it's very possible that the government wants to repeat this again before Christmas. Concerning the cooperation with V4 countries and India, we very much, and I can only subscribe to everything what has been said by my predecessor speakers. We would be happy, you know, to to have the certain framework of cooperation between us and India. And we have excellent cooperation on international fora. We support mutually our candidates to the international organizations. So there is basically a 100% consensus on how we see the international developments. Of course, we support territorial integrity of India. We support you very much in fight against terrorism, and we wish you a good luck during your non-permanent membership to the UN Security Council. It will be very challenging. I had the privilege to be so-called national coordinator of the Slovak non-permanent membership to the UN Security Council in 2007. So I know how demanding is this job and what, more or less, what you can expect. You are very experienced diplomacy. You have very skillful diplomats, and I very much believe that your membership will be very fruitful, and not only for your country but for all of us, I have to say. So by this I can maybe conclude my initial remarks. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Ivan Landsberg, Ambassador of Slovak Republic to India. We unfortunately do not have Dr. Irina Ionela Pop, Public Administration Officer from Romania, but she has sent her official statement. Her official statement will be read by Ms. Tanisha Bhattacharya from Tillotoma Foundation.
From Tillotoma Foundation, Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, India and Romania have a long tradition of diplomatic relations which started 72 years ago, more precisely in the 14th of December 1948. In 1955, Romania established its first embassy in India, while India settled its own in 1959 in Bucharest. Presently, Romania also has a commercial office in New Delhi, as well as honorary consultants in Kolkata and Chennai. Since 1962, political and diplomatic contacts took place on a regular basis at presidential, governmental, foreign affairs ministers and parliamentary levels. Last decade has brought an enhanced partnership between Romania and India, starting since 8th of March 2013. We are hoping to become stronger every day. The economic relation between India and Romania are as old as their political relations. Major area of cooperation has been petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, metallurgy, SMEs, trade, textile, agriculture, defense, culture, education, and research. Presently, India is the second largest economic partner of Romania in Asia after China. The economic exchanges between the two countries favor India, and Indian investors show a growing interest in Romania. Although the engagement between the two countries has increased in the past year, there is still room for enhancement of mutually beneficial cooperations, for example in technological cooperation, connectivity projects, and renewable energy and tourism. In conclusion, friendly relations between Romania and India are based on historical roots, and we have to consolidate on the long term to friendships between our countries. Once again, I would like to convey to all India a message of peace and friendship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bhattacharya, and thanks to Dr. Irina Ionela Pop for her official statement. Now let me request Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar to kindly make his statement.
Thank you very much, Soham, for this invitation, and thank you also for getting all of us together to discuss this very important subject. First of all, let me say it's a great pleasure to see my good friends Ambassador Adam Borokowski and Ambassador Milan Hovarka. It's been some time. I think COVID is standing between all of us, but still it is good that we have the possibility of interacting with each other on the virtual platform. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to Ambassador Kirali to India, and I do hope, Ambassador, that you have a very fruitful and a pleasant and a very significant tenure in our country. Of course, once the COVID pandemic, we are getting over it, or the vaccine is there, then I think we will have possibilities of being able to see each other. And Ambassador Lankarik, again, it was very good to hear what you had to say. You know, I have had the pleasure of visiting the Slovak residence very many times. Of course, not in your presence. I forget the name of the ambassador, but it was soon after the disintegration both of the Soviet Union as also the creation of the Slovak Republic. I think he was your first ambassador here, and I was at that time the director in the Ministry of External Affairs, and we knew each other well. He came again to be the ambassador to India after some years, so maybe that will help you to be able to identify who he was. But we were very friendly even at that time. So I do look forward to the opportunity of meeting you again when things normalize. So delighted to be here because this is a very important area, and I think all the distinguished ambassadors have made extremely important and very useful contributions. So I think one of the disadvantages of speaking after so many experts and so many knowledgeable people is that whatever you had wanted to say has already been said. There is very little that remains to be said. But let me just pick up on a few points that were made, some by Ambassador Hovorka, some by Ambassador Borokowski and the others. And one or two of the things was what still remains to be done if everything is going on well. What remains to be done? And I know all of us who have been worked as heads of mission in different countries, we know that however well things might be going, there is always more to do. There is, and the potential is so huge, particularly today when the circumstances are changing, when the world is undergoing a churn. There is so much of transformation that is taking place. And I think all the V4 countries and India are emerging and occupying their rightful place in the global community. So in that context, what are the possibilities? Then I think Ambassador Hovorka also mentioned the possibility that it's not only a trade relationship, it's not only an investment relationship, it has to go beyond that. So in that context also, maybe I would pose some questions. I don't think we have the possibility today to have a discussion on that, but I think those discussions would be extremely useful, and at some future time possibly we can take them forward. And the last is in terms of people-to-people contact, which is so very good. And I know that Ambassador Hovorka has been organizing so many, whether it is musical ensembles or film shows, and I've had the pleasure and the privilege of being invited to all of them. I have visited, I have gone to some of them, but I think that is an extremely good way of reaching out to people. So very quickly, let me flag some of the issues that are in my view very, very significant, which have been mentioned, but I will again flag them. Number one is not only when we are talking about trade, but I think in the world of today, when everyone is suffering from the coronavirus pandemic, now we are coming to the stage of vaccines. And India plays a very significant role as far as manufacture, as far as production, and as far as distribution of vaccines is concerned. So if you look at some of the major global meetings that have taken place, whether it was G20, 21st, 22nd November, whether it was BRICS on the 17th November, it was SCO on the 10th of November. Everywhere it has been mentioned about the way that we can produce, manufacture, and distribute the vaccines. There are so many candidates that are coming up, whether it is Sputnik 5 from Russia, whether it is the AstraZeneca from Oxford in London, or even the Indian vaccine. So I think that is one area where we can really work very well. Second, I would say, is in terms of healthcare. I know when I was ambassador to Sweden and also concurrent charge in Latvia, I know that Indian healthcare workers and Indian healthcare experience, particularly as far as the older generation is concerned, the senior citizens are concerned, that we used to have extremely good partnership. So I would suggest that that is a very important area. The third, which has been mentioned, I know by at least 2 or 3 of the previous speakers, of the ambassadors, is tourism. You know, I cannot emphasize that enough, because as far as Indians are concerned, just one statistics, there are more than 30 million of Indians who go out every year. They are quite tired of the usual destinations like Thailand, like Southeast Asia and the others. And they would like some new destinations. I know that Central Europe, that the Baltic states and some of the others have emerged as very significant tourist destinations. So that would be one area where one could focus on, we could focus on. Of course, I don't know about the V4 countries, but some of the other countries where I have been to, there it is mentioned that getting visas at times becomes a time-consuming process. And I think if that could be looked at also, although I was very heartened by the numbers, I think, that were given by our friend Ambassador Hovorka when he said that the numbers have really gone up, or was it Ambassador Burakovsky? I think you mentioned in terms of the numbers that have gone up. But this is something that we could definitely focus on. I'm extremely sorry that when you started the lot direct flights from Warsaw to Delhi, and this pandemic had to strike. But I am very hopeful. I am very sanguine about the situation that will we will face as we go forward. The next is in the area of education. I'm sorry. I think education is again another area in which all the V4 countries can have a great possibility. I remember that from Latvia, what we had done is we would send consular officers from Latvia to come to India. At that time, Latvia did not have an embassy here. They would be stationed here for about a month or so, and they would be able to grant visas to students who want to go there. I was in Sweden, and I know that a large number of Indian students would come to Hungary for their medical education. So there are several of them. But I think even from India, you will find that that has a very good possibility in areas of medicine, engineering, science, and other fields. Then I would also say that the high-level visits between the two sides can definitely be very instrumental in bringing the two countries together. Of course, I was looking at the high-level visits, and Ambassador Burakovsky mentioned about the visit of the Indian Vice President, the External Affairs Minister. Also, we were discussing the visit of the Polish President to India, but that unfortunately has not happened because of COVID and other circumstances. I do hope that that takes place soon. In Hungary, we had a Vice President and the External Affairs Minister. And from the other side, we have had very many ministerial visits. From the Czech Republic, our president went there. The Czech Prime Minister was here. The Czech Foreign Minister was here for the Raisina dialogue. I remember very well we had a meeting there. And from the with Slovakia, again, there has been a reasonable exchange of visits. The point I want to make is that this could be further enhanced significantly. And particularly today, when we have, when every one of us is afflicted by the virus, and there are so many exchanges that are taking place online through video conferencing, possibly this would be a good opportunity to have bilateral interactions between the foreign ministers of different countries with India's foreign minister. I can understand and appreciate that having a person-to-person meeting is always different, but still to take the relationship forward, to give it, to identify new areas, I think this could definitely have a good, it will have a good impact. Some of the other areas, you know what, my experience again, both in Sweden as also in Latvia, was that although the countries are small, although the population is small, but in terms of innovation, in terms of niche technologies, all these countries have a great deal to share. And I don't have the slightest doubt that the V4 countries also would be having their own significant areas where from India and companies in these countries, they can cooperate and they can work together. I particularly liked this reference to the India-EU BTIA, the Bilateral Trade and Investment Agreement. In fact, I was in Brussels in 2007 when we started the negotiations on the India-EU BTIA, when the summit took place in Helsinki. And I remember in 2007, we had mentioned, our then Prime Minister had mentioned that we will take 2 years. That was the target, a very ambitious target, but that is what it was mentioned. But it could not be completed, and we are still at it. I think the last meeting to discuss the BTIA issues was held in 2013, and we really need to take it forward. You mentioned, Ambassador Lenkarek, about the high-value automobiles. That is an area of concern. I think alcoholic beverages is another area, but there are only a few areas. And from India, I think it is the possibility of the manpower exports. I think we can really work on these, and we can take care of this. I think on the political side, on the strategic side, sorry, India is to take on some significant global responsibilities. You mentioned about India's non-permanent membership of the United Nations, and that is going to be next year and the year after that. India also has taken over as the chair of BRICS, the 5 BRICS countries, for this next year. India is also hosting the head of government meeting summit in India in New Delhi of the SCO. That will also be on a virtual format. We were hoping that we would be able to invite the SCO prime ministers, but that is not going to happen. Also, India will head the G20, the important gathering of the 20 large economies and countries in 2023. So I think those are areas where at the global level also, India and V4 could cooperate. Now, in terms of the questions that I had, which I guess I will just flag them, and because I think we will have other times to discuss it. And that is what is the view as far as V4 is concerned about the rise of China? Because I know that since all 4 of you are here, you have been seeing what has been the discussion, what has been the debate on the assertiveness of China, on the aggressiveness of China, and how, starting particularly with the Wuhan virus, there is being a pushback or a backlash against China. So what does V4 think about China as we go forward? And the second on this would be, and again here there has been a big debate, the whole world is also debating about that, as to what is going to be the impact of the change of the presidency in the United States on the V4 countries. With Europe, of course, it is said that Mr. Biden wants to strengthen the alliances. With NATO also, he wants to strengthen the alliance. But how do you think it is going to have an impact on the V4 countries? So this, and there has been so much of debate and discussion, we know, as far as the progress of the European Union is concerned. But I guess today we will not get the time, because I think we are really running out of time. But what I want to say is there has been a great pleasure to participate in this. It is wonderful at a personal level to see and meet all friends here. And I would like to particularly compliment Ambassador Gauri Shankar Gupta, because it is his initiative that has really got us here. And I was extremely happy when he called me a few weeks ago and said that this is what we are planning to do. And I said, yes, I think this is an area that we have to an extent neglected. But the last message that I would like to leave here is that we need to do such interactions at maybe in different formats, repeat them over a period of time, so that this message is able to percolate to a much wider, much broader cross-section of our community. So with these words, once again, thank you, and I wish good health, happiness, peace, and success to all the participants, and particularly to our esteemed guests in this deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former Indian Ambassador and visiting Distinguished Fellow, Tillotoma Foundation, for your statement. Now I request Dr. Gauri Shankar Gupta, former Indian Ambassador and Distinguished Advisor, Tillotoma Foundation, to make his statement.
Sri Soham Das, Director of the Tillotoma Foundation, Ambassador Adam Burkowski, Ambassador of Poland, Ambassador Milan Hovorka, Ambassador of the Czech Republic, my friend Andras Laszlo Kirai, Ambassador of Hungary, Ivan Lancarik, Ambassador of Slovak Republic, and my dear colleague Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador and very active diplomat of India. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all the excellencies for their gracious presence on this occasion. When I approached them, they very readily agreed to participate in this conference, and I'm grateful to them that they could spare time to be with us this afternoon. And of course, thanks to Tillotoma Foundation for this initiative. Now, I would like to bifurcate my presentation in two parts. One briefly on the V4 and then a little bit on Hungary. Now, I have visited these countries in three different phases. My first visit to these countries was in 1984. That was the time when Soviet Union was still in place, and I had seen the low level of development and the bureaucratic hurdles and the immigration hassles. And then I visited in 97, which was the time of transition when things were changing rapidly in these countries. And third time when I went as ambassador to Hungary in 2010, when the transformation has already taken place and was taking place at a very fast pace. Now, if we define Central Europe in terms of the former Soviet Union, East Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary were considered Central European countries that time. And today, in the context of EU, apart from the V4 countries, we also include Bulgaria, Romania, Croatia, and Slovenia in the Central European countries. But my focus today will be on V4 because V4 are the most dynamic of the Central European countries, and I have seen their dynamism in practice during my visits to these countries. Now, in terms of trade and investments, I would say India's trade and investments is not that small in these countries. I have done some statistics here. Our investments in these four countries, V4 countries, is approximately 12 billion US dollars. That includes the investment of Tatas in Slovakia. And of course, we have investments in Hungary, which is approximately 3.5 billion, in Poland, approximately 3 billion, and in Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, about 2 billion. So that makes about 12 billion of Indian investments in these countries. Our trade is approximately 6 billion, highest being with Poland. Poland is the largest trade partner of India in that sense. Now, I would also like to mention that these four countries have actually recorded a growth of over 800% in the last 20 years, which is very, very high rate of growth. They have grown at a rate of 4.5% per annum, which is highest in European Union if you take all other countries put together. So this region has really grown very fast. They are very investment friendly. They have given tax incentives. They have given various incentives in terms of what you call land and water supply and other incentives which industries need. And they have well-trained manpower, very, very dedicated workers I have seen in these countries. And as a result, the Indians have gone there with large investments. So that is briefly I wanted to talk about the economic side, because the ambassadors have given excellent presentation concerning this area in their presentations. Now, in terms of other relations, I think we have very cordial relations with all the V4 countries. Unfortunately, we don't have one single forum where we can interact. And Mr. Jaishankar, our current foreign minister, has served in Hungary, he has served in Czech Republic. So I think he knows these countries very well. No foreign minister who knows this better than Jaishankar. So I think he himself must be thinking, and maybe I'll convey this message to him after this virtual conference today, that we should institute a institutional cooperation with V4 separately, because they have their identity of their own. If I go back to the origin of V4, I was told that way back, centuries back in 1335, Karoly Robert, that King Charles I of Hungary, actually invited Bohemia and Poland, the kings of Poland and Bohemia, for a conference in Visegrád. So I believe the foundation of Visegrád 4 was laid down way back in 1335. And then it was relayed in 1991 after the breakup of the Soviet Union, when these two countries again, got together in Visegrád and launched this forum in that historical context. So this, context acquires a very important element in our relationship, and I think the government of India should think of instituting this cooperation at an institutional level so that we can work together more closely. We have, I must say that I have the pleasure of sitting with my Hungarian colleagues everywhere, because H and I come next to each other in alphabet. So when I was Deputy Permanent Delegate in UNESCO, I used to sit next to my Hungarian colleague, Pál Pataki, who was also the chair of the General Assembly of UNESCO at one stage. Similarly, my colleagues in UN tell me that they sit next to Hungarian colleagues, all the time. So even otherwise, we have been, connected very well. We are cooperating in all UN bodies. We support each other's candidatures. We are, working together on climate issues. We are working together on expansion of Security Council. And I'm grateful to all of you for your support to the permanent membership of India to the United Nations Security Council. Now, in terms of people-to-people contact, I think they have increased. I remember the direct flight between Vienna and Delhi has actually increased a lot of tourists from India to these countries. The destinations are actually Hungary, Czech Republic, Austria, and Slovakia. These have become very big destinations. To some extent, Poland and Baltic states are, clubbed together. So a lot of Indians are going to these countries as tourists. I've seen myself. A lot of students are going to these countries. So the educational cooperation is increasing. There are a lot of scholarships being offered, both from the V4 side as well as from the Indian side, for promoting educational cooperation. So this area of our cooperation is actually multifarious. It's acquiring all the dimensions that are possible. Now we are also reaching towards what we call strategic political cooperation, which is possible once we have institutionalized V4 cooperation with India. Now that is a small focus on the V4. Now I would like to devote a few lines which I had written on Visegrád. This is a small poem which I had written way back, I think in 2013, when I was posted in Hungary. And since we are talking about V4, I would like to read out, with your permission, these few lines which I had written on this beautiful city of Visegrád. Perched high on the hilltop, the ruins of the magnificent fort, constantly gazing at the perennial river, Visegrád appears like a blooming flower. Adorned by beautiful hills, surrounded by forest lush green, with nature constantly smiling, and tracks and pathways winding. Where kings once walked and emperors stopped and talked, with a magnificent view of the Danube, Visegrád is a source of joy and solitude. Symbol of Hungarian integration, fortitude, valor, and resolution, carrying the torch of liberation, Visegrád is integral to the European civilization. So these are the few lines which I had written way back. I did not know that I will be addressing the V4 Nations conference today. And I remembered quickly that I should read this out. Now, briefly talking about Indo-Hungarian relations. I remember my first call on the Prime Minister of Hungary, Mr. Viktor Orban. That was soon after I assumed my charge in Budapest. He was elected as the Prime Minister, and I had the privilege of calling on him soon thereafter. The first sentence he uttered, the very first sentence, welcoming me, he said that, listen, we have the Eastern connection. We have deeply rooted in the East. That is what he said. And that, I was very much impressed by that, and I was also somewhat taken aback because I did not expect that kind of remark from Prime Minister Viktor Orban. But that is absolutely true, and I would like to give a brief history of that context. Now, there is a person called Toma Korosi Sandor. He is a very historical figure in Hungary, still a little bit known in Bengal, particularly in your part, Mr. Das, because he's buried in Darjeeling, and there's a tomb named after him in Darjeeling. Now, Toma Korosi Sandor went to India. He traveled Central Europe for almost 2.5 years, looking for the origin of Hungarian people, because Hungarians are not Europeans. They traveled from eastern part of the world and went to Europe. Some people say that they are from the Hun dynasty, which was in the northern part of India and Tibet and what we call the Ladakh area today. So he went in search of Hungarian people, Hungarian origin, to that part of India. He went to Ladakh. He lived in Ladakh for several years actually. Then he traveled to Calcutta. He became what we call honorary member of Asiatic Society of Calcutta long time back in 1834. And then he spent almost all his, rest of his life, 15, 20 years in India, and he died in Darjeeling. He's buried in Darjeeling. So this is one example I tell you. Another person is called Aurel Estein. He went to India way back in 1887, and he was advised by another Indologist called Tivadar Duka. And they did a lot of archaeological survey in excavations and survey in India to find out about the origin of Hungarian people. They also did translation of a lot of Indian documents into Hungarian language as well as in English. In fact, Soma Korosi Sandor came out with an English-Tibetan dictionary, Tibetan-English dictionary. That was the first dictionary from Tibetan to English which he wrote. Then, if you look at the Indian culture, tremendous interest in these V4 countries about Indian culture. You talk about yoga, you talk about Ayurveda. I have been to Czech Republic. I have a very dear friend there who is deeply involved in Ayurveda. They run these yoga classes. Same is true with Poland. Same is true with Slovakia. In Hungary, it is even deeper. There are at least 50 organizations dealing with the yoga and Ayurveda in Hungary. Since I take interest in this issue, I must tell you that I must have delivered more than 250 talks in various cities and towns in Hungary about Indian culture, Indian civilization, and Ayurveda. Now, the epic of Mahabharata was translated into Hungarian by Károly Fiók in way back in 1885. Ramayana was also translated by Károly Fiók in 1903. Sakuntala, Abhigyan Sakuntalam, the great, poet Kalidas wrote that, great drama, and that was translated in 1887. Then Hitopadesh was translated by Samuel Brassai in 1884. And then, Manusmriti and many other Indian writings were translated into Hungarian language over the years. Now there is a very deep connection of our famous poet Rabindranath Tagore, not only to Hungary but also to other V4 countries. He went to Hungary in 1926 for heart ailment. He took his treatment in Balaton Furet, where a major boulevard has been named after him. His statue is there. A large part of his writings have been translated into Hungarian language over the years, and Rabindranath Tagore actually is regarded as a great figure of Indian culture, history, and civilization in Hungary. We have many other figures, Saas-Brunner, his daughter Elizabeth Saas-Brunner, they were also, great figures in Hungary. There are museums named after them. They lived in India, they died in India. They were buried in Uttarakhand, what we call Uttarakhand today. Now there is also a history associated with President Arpad Gonc. Arpad Gonc became the first president of Hungary after the dissolution of Soviet Union. He remained president from 1990 to 2000 for 10 years. And actually the history is very fascinating, because during the time of 1956 revolution in Hungary, he was arrested and he was charged with the charges of sedition. He was supposed to be hanged, but somehow the Indian intervention came in between and his death sentence was curtailed to life imprisonment. And finally, after a few years, as a part of general amnesty, he was released from the imprisonment. And therefore, he lived a normal life for a few years. And then he was elected as the first Hungarian president after dissolution of Soviet Union. So these are some of the very fascinating stories about India and Hungary. And I'm sure similar stories exist between India and Poland, India and Czech Republic, India and Slovakia. All these stories demonstrate that how close our historic roots are, how close our people are connected between these, two faraway countries, faraway regions, but a culture, a thinking, a mentality which is similar, which brings them together. So I thought I would mention these, few incidents and few anecdotes of history to highlight that how closely we are connected and how smoothly we can move forward. I would conclude my remarks saying that it is time to institutionalize this cooperation. I think the Tillotoma Foundation should also take this initiative, and I will talk to some people in Delhi. If we can institutionalize this cooperation, it would be a great achievement. And before I conclude, I would like to show you this book which I had edited when I was in Hungary, that is Indo-Hungarian Ties. It contains wonderful articles by very eminent scholars and gives a very great perspective of the entire conference. So thank you very much once again, Excellencies. Thank you, Tillotoma Foundation. Ashok, thank you very much for your participation and your support. I greatly value your support. I can also see Ambassador Buchani, who is there. Thank you very much, sir, for your participation. And I'm once again would like to thank all of you, and thanks for your patience, for your time, and your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gaurishankar Gupta, former ambassador, former Indian ambassador, and distinguished advisor to the Tillotoma Foundation, for your statement. I now request Dr. Namrata Kothari, assistant professor under the University of Calcutta, to make her statement.
Thank you very much, Tillotoma Foundation, for inviting me among the galaxies of excellencies. And I have thought of speaking in a different way on foreign policy and all, but already all of them spoke everything. I have very little to say. And I am very happy to see Ashok Sajjanar sir. Once I have opportunity to meet him in Kolkata. Hopefully after this pandemic again we will meet. And all of us know him not as an ambassador, but professors in our circle. So very good evening to Professor Sajjanar. I want to start with the foreign policy and all this stuff. But later on I thought everything was said. So why not start with the historical aspect? But Gaurishankar sir even snatched that opportunity from me. So I start with Rabindranath Tagore. I thought of that, but thankfully he stuck to Hungary only. So I will start with Czechoslovakia and Rabindranath Tagore. So as we all know, we have a very strong historical ties with Central European countries. Like if you'll see the example of Czechoslovakia, where we find the great poet of India, Rabindranath Tagore, whose language encouraged Czech's composer, Leos, to put a story from Tagore's book, The Gardener, to music in his Wandering Madman in 1920s. In 1937, on Christmas Eve, he wrote to Tagore a message, and he called, in quote, the harmonious voice of the East. And Tagore also sent a goodwill telegram to a friend in Czechoslovakia. As an old idealist, I quote, as an old idealist who clings to his faith in the common destiny of the East and the West and all the people on the earth. So the ties with these countries, the Central European countries, is not new. Even they were inspired by our non-violent movement of Gandhiji. So we will see a long historical legacy. But the recent work on the Czech's foreign policy, 2017, an analysis where we find it includes a brief evaluation of relations with India and states that various ministers of foreign affairs, trade and industry considered India increasingly important, not just bilaterally, but also a vital regional player in South Asia. Nevertheless, we will see a constructive change is taking place in near future while we see the recent visit of our President Ramnath Kovind and Czech's President, where a joint statement or agreement was signed which encouraged a more concrete collaboration, not just in economy, education, science, and also in tourism, but also in a peaceful use of nuclear energy, the fight against the trade, protectionism, and counter-terrorism. So there's a complete strategic partnership agreement between these two countries. Even we will find that the first Indian festival in Bratislava took place in 23rd September 2018. And this is a very positive step forward to introduce Indian food, handicrafts, garments, and cultural performance to the local people. So we will see even with the Hungary, we will see that the India intervened with the communist regime in Moscow that saved the life of Dr. Gons, and he later went to serve as a president of Hungary from 1990 to 2000. So the first country's first non-communist president after the end of Cold War. Even India also is trying to promote the Ayurveda, as already said our others spoken by our other speakers about the promotion of Ayurveda in Hungary, which has a tradition of spa therapies, and even the Indian embassies, they helped to organize an international Ayurveda conference in Budapest in September 2007, and also a workshop was organized in 2010. But after the end of Cold War, we will see that the subsequent geopolitical development and the transformative impact on India's relation with the Central and East Europe. Consequently, we will see India and CEE countries recalibrated their foreign policies, but changed external orientations and did not augment their bilateral relationships. Their political interactions, we will see, that became less frequent and economic linkages relatively modest. Despite a positive mutual perception, we will see culture and people-to-people contact and so vibrant and extensive. Since 90s, we will see India and CEE have registered reasonably impressive economic growth. They have been pursuing economic reform and taking initiative for building digital and physical infrastructure for facilitating further growth and development with global economy. Therefore, we will see that there is an urge for enhancing India-CEE partnership, and now seen gradually gaining momentum and positive measures. New synergies have been evolving. India's multiple programs ranging from Make in India, Clean India to Skill India offer opportunities for enhancing cooperation. As already said by different speakers, like now during this regime, an effort was made by our government to again revive this relationship. So it is clear from the visit of our president's visit, back-to-back trip to Eastern and Southern European countries, and also we will see that the Western and the Central and the Eastern Europe getting integrated into Europe and developing markets and niche capabilities in techno-defense, as already elaborated by our esteemed speakers, and IT sectors, while maintaining its distinct reality. So India is looking to boost economic ties with the erstwhile communist states of Eastern Europe and also with the Southern European countries amid inroads by China as a part of its mega infrastructure project, as we all know, this Belt Road initiative. So we will see Delhi is keen to enter these flourishing markets as well as take technology and funds as opposition to BRI raise in Europe, not just in Western Europe, but also in subtle fashion in erstwhile Eastern Bloc. So there is a growing reservation against Chinese trains entering Europe, as numbers of countries have little to export back through these trains. So this we have also heard of this V4 countries, which is Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia. They are seeking to attract India to Eastern and Central Europe through their quadrilateral groupings. They form this V4 group for the purpose of advancing military, cultural, economic, and energy cooperation with one another, along with furthering amid China 16+1 thing. So we will see India's growing ties with within this region is a best exemplified with this remark: our economic ties, I'm quoting this, our economic ties hold immense promise. The Indian growth story and Czech's technology and manufacturing prowess makes us natural purpose. Let us work to make this collaboration grow and prosper. Quote close. So now we will see we are trying to make our ties stronger with these Central European countries, and as already said by excellencies of Czech Republic that they are exporting 25% to India, 1.1% was imported from India, and even it is also said by our excellencies, Excellency of Slovakia, that last 2 years we will see that the export was double in India. And I am also very hopeful, and India is also hopeful that this sort of trade relation, this tourism, education, people-to-people contact will increase more and more with this country, so that both of us will be benefited in the economic terms and also in terms of cultural ties. And I am also very much hopeful, as already said by our Excellency of Slovakia, that if we have free trade relations, then definitely we will get this 100% duty off from this Range Rover car and the Audi, and we'll enjoy the ride of this car. Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to Tillotoma Foundation, and also give me the opportunity to speak in front of the galaxies of excellencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Namrata Kothari, for your presentation. I thank all the distinguished guests, all the excellencies amongst us here, but I thank you all for joining with us, and I think we had a very productive discussion with the V4 countries. And I once again thank all of you. I especially thank Ambassador Dr. Gaurishankar Gupta for his sincere support and for his initiative. And I thank you all of you. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. And I conclude here.